Welcome everybody. Welcome to our WhyTry webinar. Today we are really excited for today's subject because we get to share some new resources, which is a thing that we don't get to do as frequently as we would love, but this is some stuff that's been a real long time in the works, and we're really excited to be able to model it and even get some of these resources into your hands. So today, my name is Jason Johnson. Today's subject topic matter is going to be an elementary approach to building resilience in our students. We're going to highlight the WhyTry approach to resilience, but show specifically what this looks like in reference or within an elementary context. And we're going to use some brand new resources and model those to kind of show what that looks like. Now, before we get going, just a couple of logistical items around the nature of the webinar here. So we are scheduled to go about an hour. I think we'll be pretty good around the timing of that. In addition to that, this is on a webinar link, which means myself and our panelist, Corey, we're the only ones with live cameras and microphones. We can't see you and we can't hear you. What that means is we are going to lean quite heavily on the chat to be able to engage with you. And I think there will be several times today where we'll actually ask for you to respond in the chat. Now, the chat has kind of a mind of its own sometimes. If you'll open up your chat box, take a look where you would type a message. Right above where you would type that message, it says to, and then there's a little drop-down menu that says who your message is going to. If that does not say to everyone, we're going to ask you to adjust that so that it does say to everyone. If it just says to hosts and panelists and you share a message, then Corey and I are the only ones that can see your message. But the chat has become a really important part of this this online community where a lot of great ideas can be shared, and we all can kind of learn from one another's comments and ideas while the webinar is going. So just to give you a chance to make that adjustment, adjust your chat settings so you're sharing comments with everyone. And then after you've done that, go ahead and type in the chat. Let's have you share an emoji that describes how your week is going so far in the chat. If you don't have the emoji keyboard, then you can make your own emoji out of punctuation. All right, we got oh, this is good. This is a great collection of emojis. These are so good. It's like learning a new language. I love it. Margie's exclamation marks brought a smile to my face. And for anybody that shared an emoji that is expressing some form of exhaustion or feeling down a little bit, we're really glad that you're here, and we hope that this will be a little bit of a pick-me-up as well. So thank you everybody for showing up, and thanks for sharing with us how things are going. As I mentioned, today we're going to be discussing kind of this elementary approach to WhyTry material. And I'm really excited. Our panel today is going to consist of myself and my colleague, Corey Anderson here. So let me try to give Corey a proper introduction. Corey, Mr. Corey Anderson, member of the WhyTry team. Prior to that, he has spent 2 decades as an educator, beginning as an ESL paraprofessional. He's worked at Title I schools. He's overseen various different after-school programs, worked as a teacher and administrator, specifically in elementary settings, has worked with Spanish immersion programs, STEM programs, etc. He's overseen behavior units, led his schools in implementing support system enrichment, academic programs, and activities. joined the WhyTry team in about 2019, where he currently works as my colleague. He works as a trainer and the director of curriculum development after he used these WhyTry tools for close to 10 years as a WhyTry facilitator. And we feel so fortunate to have him as part of our team. And he's been a real critical part in the development of some of these resources we're going to be sharing today. Corey, welcome.
Thank you, Jason. Very excited to be here.
I am Jason Johnson. I am a member of the WhyTry team as well. My background is I'm a school psychologist, worked in public ed as a school psych. I came over to the WhyTry organization about 8 years ago, and I currently oversee training and research for the WhyTry organization. And I've been fortunate to be able to work with Corey on a lot of the development on these resources we're going to be kind of rolling out and showing you today. And I'm excited to see how this goes. I think this will be really fun. So what I want to start off with, just to kind of set the foundation for what we ultimately want to discuss today. I'm recognizing that in attendance with us today, we've probably got a good combination of people that have been using WhyTry resources and material for some time and may be familiar with this thing you'll hear me reference called the WhyTry approach. And I also recognize that we have some new people here that may not have a background on the WhyTry approach as much. So I'm going to just start off with like a brief 3 to 5 minute kind of history on where these resources and this approach came from and what it's really designed and attempting to do. So organizationally, we've been around for about 20 years. And we started off primarily as a toolkit that was being used by counselors in one-on-one settings. And then it very quickly expanded out into a thing that was being used in small group settings, classroom settings. It even expanded out to a kind of an approach to delivering skills and sources of resilience being used outside of schools as well. Primarily, we've been used in K through 12 settings, but we're now used in the worlds of post-secondary education, in the worlds of mental health, as well as in the worlds of corrections, adult and juvenile justice. And it's just been this really incredible ride of these tools that were developed very early on by our founder, Christian Moore, and then kind of built out by his co-founder, Hans Magleby. And we've now had the opportunity to assist in all 50 states, as well as United Kingdom, Australia, etc. So at the core of this toolkit rests this thing we call the WhyTry approach. And Corey's going to go into a little more detail here in a minute, but I'm going to pull up some slides here and just give you a quick overview of what this thing is that you'll hear me keep referring to, this WhyTry approach. At its core, it's built around 3 key principles, and these are all designed to help teach the skills of resilience and help our kiddos and our students ultimately become more resilient and be more resilient in their lives. And the foundation of this is this thing we call the new 3 R's. And the new 3 R's are this simple formula: relationship plus relevance equals resilience. Everything that we do is designed to help educators build and strengthen relationships with their students. That's kind of the heartbeat and the foundation of this approach. And then our goal is that we deliver content with relevance to help our kiddos see how it applies to their lives. And then the end result becomes this resilient mindset where kiddos start to look at their challenges a little bit differently. And ultimately, our goal is to help students and help everybody really learn to thrive amidst their challenge or their adversity that they may be facing in life. Now, to assist with this, we have this toolkit that I've described, and some of you, I think, are fairly familiar with it. But the toolkit has resources built around visual metaphors, which are stories or images that kind of tell a story and invite you to see your life within it. And then we process those and we use We use media, clips, and learning activities to help kind of experience these key concepts around resilience. But the center of all of this is kind of relationships, relevance, and resilience. And then we deliver them with our content and using our competencies. And that really kind of makes up this WhyTry approach. So historically, the WhyTry material that we've had has been built around this idea of flexibility, and it's been really useful, and it's impacted, I think at this point, really millions of kids over the last 20 years. And the toolkit has been developed so that you could use it in a flexible setting from elementary to middle to high school. The challenge historically has been that especially for elementary use, you had to really be good at that flexibility piece, and you really had to make modifications to make the elementary pieces really click for your elementary students. And so we've spent the last couple years in really focused on development, and we have developed an elementary approach that we're really proud of, that is very specific to that's been designed to allow you to really jump right in and start teaching some of these specific skills of resilience in an elementary setting. And we've put it on a model that I think is going to be really exciting for you. So Corey, who's been really the big driving force behind this, has agreed to join me on this, and I'm really excited for him to be able to hop in and kind of share what these look like and how they connect back to our WhyTry approach. So Corey, go ahead and tell us more.
Awesome. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. And I can see your slides.
Fantastic. I'm excited to be here, my friends. Let me just quickly throw out, I appreciate Jason's introduction there. Jason's been a huge part of the process as well, so he's being nice and humble there. Let me say that just as a quick heads up, for some crazy reason, I have had this horrendous cough. I promise you, I will mute my mic if one of my coughing attacks hits me, but if you see me like spasming on the screen, it's just my cough attack. So hopefully one doesn't come in the next 35, 40 minutes. Okay, friends, so I'm really excited here. I'm going to go through a little bit of an in-depth dive into the elementary, what we were trying to accomplish, and show you some great examples about what it's all about and what we do. And then the plan is I'm going to actually throw it back to Jason and ask him to model a couple of things and do a walkthrough with you. But let's jump into the elementary here. I want to actually ask all of you a question in the chat window just to get your minds thinking a little bit. No matter what your role is, most of you are probably working in some capacity where you're working either with youth and even some adults, but trying to help them in various capacities. Whatever your role is, I want you to imagine over the last year, think about the students that you've been working with in your role, in your position. And in the chat window, what I'd like you to answer is when you imagine that student or those students finding success or finding opportunities in life, what is it that they need to find that success, right? So a lot of students we work with, there's a lot of challenges, there's a lot of barriers. What is it that they need? What skills, what strategies, what assets do they need to find that success? Take a moment, throw an answer into the chat window just to garner some of these skills and things that you feel they're going to need. I see some great answers coming in: social skills, self-confidence, respect, hope, empowerment, stable home life, support. Oh yeah, support is a big one, right? Trust. Yeah, I love it. Compassion, education, right? Consistency, structure, life skills, self-advocacy, motivation, empathy. This is quite a list, right? I mean, I love it. So this is a lot of stuff. And for a lot of these students, these kids, these kiddos that you work with, there's a bit of a gap there, and trying to fill that gap and whose role is it and how do we do it even as a community? It's a big question. And that is partially what we're trying to address here. WhyTry specifically has 10 overarching domains that we really try to tackle in this world of resilience. And those domains, they range, there's quite a few. They're going to pop up on the screen. You can read them for yourselves, but these are some of those big ideas, these big skills and assets that they're going to need in order to find success in their life. And it's really what our program focuses on. Now, each one of these has a series of almost a subset of skills that they develop, but these are our overarching domains. In fact, if you want to see a more, I guess you could say, a more organized version of what I just showed you, a screen that I'm going to show you right now, which it's a little complicated, it's a little busy, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But what I wanted to point out here, these first two columns you see where it says content and facilitator competencies, for those who are familiar with WhyTry, you know that that really encompasses our approach, right? And everything you see in those first two columns has a role in how we work with students. I didn't mean to go backwards. Why did that happen? Goodness gracious. Oh, well, it was the third column that I was really trying to go towards. And unfortunately, I messed up on the timing there. That's too bad. But the third column that's going to pop up, and I'm going to invite you to read it as it starts to kind of show up for you. That third column represent the skills of resilience that we really are trying to teach with our students. It's the stuff that I showed you just a little bit before. So we've got decision-making, positive self-image, emotional regulation, resilient mindset, problem solving, peer influence and relationships, hard work, determination, responsibility and expectations, relationships and support, and self-efficacy. So I'm going to be digging into those a little bit more here in just a moment. So I don't feel too bad that it disappeared, but I apologize for that. I do want to share with you what our objectives were going into this. Like, what were we trying to achieve as we started to develop our elementary resources and tools a little deeper? These were some of the objectives we had in mind as we went through the development process. We wanted to create a part of the WhyTry program that could be implemented year over year in an elementary school that would require less customization. Jason brought up this idea that, you know, in the earlier days, the elementary tools, it did require quite a bit of customization to reach students from the primary all the way to the intermediate grades. We wanted to provide more resources that made it easier to customize. Then we wanted to provide developmentally targeted objectives that build on each other, right? Take, for example, decision-making. Yes, decision-making is this big topic, and quite frankly, even as adults, we're still trying to master that skill. But there are certain aspects of decision-making that we're going to approach with the first and second grader that perhaps we're not going to quite go there yet with the fifth and sixth grader, okay? We wanted to provide new metaphors or renditions of our current metaphors to facilitate this continued learning. And this is a big part of what we do, is using a metaphor. And then, of course, we wanted to build it, maintaining this WhyTry approach and also maintaining flexibility. So while we do provide some awesome scripted materials for you, flexibility is very important here, because if you think just about the people in this webinar, there's so many of you in different roles who need tools to use in different settings. It does require some room for flexibility. So here we go. What I want to do is I'm just going to kind of take you through these 10 overarching domains and show you what we've developed in terms of how we go vertically from our primary grades to our intermediate grades and the metaphors that we use to do it. Because anybody who knows WhyTry, and if you were brand new to WhyTry, the metaphor is one of our central components where we take these abstract concepts and ideas like emotional regulation or problem solving or hard work, and we attach it to something that's much easier to comprehend. And when we do that, it allows learners to kind of enter in and access it where they wouldn't have been able to before. So with that in mind, let's start with the reality ride. The reality ride is one of our initial units. It's all about decision making. And what you're looking at here is a resource in the toolkit that is what we call a vertical alignment that basically shows and explains what we do in first and second grade compared to third and fourth grade, compared to 5th and 6th grade. If I were to scroll down here, it actually shows the objectives that are attached to each of those grade levels as well. So it gives a good overview from where we go. But in 1st and 2nd grade, we focus in on the key skill of that idea of stop, think, and then make a choice, right? And then from there, we're going to build on that. And in 3rd and 4th grade, students take a step back and they consider the longer term consequences of choices and take a third person view of the roller coaster, which is, the central, is what the metaphor essentially is. And then in 5th and 6th grade, there is actually another version of that roller coaster, but we also hone in on the wall. And the wall is a component of that roller coaster that represents the consequences that we run into when we're making easy, fast choices, right? That instant gratification. Well, we start to teach here, they learn about the wall metaphor and that it represents the potential negative consequences of consistently making easy and fast choices in their life. So this is everything this is essentially how we build the reality write-up. Labels, tearing off your labels, a very popular unit of ours that really can reach students in a really deep way, especially at the secondary level. So we had to take a step back. What does that look like at the primary grades? The key skill that we focus in here is going to be a positive self-image. And we use the idea of a label. Now, that looks different, as you can see. In the 1st and 2nd grade, we actually just use a label in terms of a name tag label. And we introduce the idea that label with your name on it, it actually doesn't represent completely who you are. It may say your name, but there is so much more about you. And we have a term for that. We call that the real me. So we teach that all of us have a real me that represents more closely who you truly are. And we take a strength-based approach at looking at and analyzing, okay, so what are my strengths? What do I like about myself? What do others like about me? We help start to answer that question, who is the real me if I'm looking at myself through this positive lens? And then from there, in 3rd and 4th grade, students expand the idea of the real me to the real you. And you can see the metaphor is another student with thought bubbles. And that represents everything that student or that person knows about themselves that perhaps somebody looking in doesn't know. And so what we're really driving at here is recognizing that everybody has a real me. We can call that the real you, and we shouldn't necessarily judge the book by its cover. Then from there, we introduce that secondary metaphor that a lot of you may be familiar with of the can with a label on it. And we introduce the idea that there are potential negative impacts of labels and stereotypes. And so we're going to introduce this topic. Obviously, again, something we're probably not going to address in 1st and 2nd grade, but we're building the steps to get there as we start working with older students. The next unit we teach is called defense mechanisms. The key objective here is learning to recognize and control emotions, right? Emotional regulation. And we start in 1st and 2nd grade with these balloons. So we represent emotions with balloons, and we start to identify certain emotions that are inflated emotions, certain emotions that are deflated, and how they impact us. So we're really trying to help students learn how to identify emotions and a little bit how they impact us. And then in 3rd and 4th grade, we're going to introduce this idea that when I feel certain emotions, especially emotions that come in pressure situations, I'm going to do things. I'm going to make choices to defend myself. We call those defense mechanisms. And so we start to teach that there are negative ones, there are positive defense mechanisms, and they will lead to different consequences as well. In fact, in 5th and 6th grade, we're going to take that a step further and start to teach how choosing negative defense mechanisms have consequences. In fact, it's like giving control of your emotions, of the situation, of your actions to another person. And anyway, you can tell the ramifications. I love talking about these, by the way. I get really excited about it. There's lots of great connections you can make with kids here. The motivation formula, the key concept here, the key skill is a resilient mindset. The motivation formula is all about things that students can do to stay motivated in the face of challenges. Things that students can do to stay motivated in the face of challenges. And so in this unit, we teach 4 essential skills. We teach positive self-talk, serving others, finding a passion, purpose, or interest, and then getting plugged into relationships, relying on relationships that can help you. And so in the first and second grade, sorry, let me take a drink. In the first and second grade, we really focus on that positive self-talk, like the rays of the sun make you feel good, right? When you walk out in sunshine and you feel that. And so we talk about positive self-talk about that and what it looks and sounds like. In third and fourth grade, we bring out this sailboat that has these sails. And what happens is the sail captures that wind and it propels it forward. Well, that wind represents challenges, but that sail represents something we can do to propel us forward. It represents positive self-talk. And then our crewmates on the ship represent the relationships that we can tap into to help us. And then in the fifth and sixth version, we expand it even more. You will see that it's a bigger storm. We start to talk more about challenges. The sails represent different skills. So those other two that we haven't quite covered yet, which is serving others and finding a passion, purpose, or interest. And you'll notice there's even this flood zone that represents how you can feel, right? Like you're overwhelmed, you're trying to keep your head above water when challenges are stacking up against you, right? And so if you're not using these strategies, that can really surface those emotions. Next unit is climbing out. Key skill, peer relationships, and influence. And a lot of you know climbing out is in the secondary is that metaphor of crabs in a pot climbing pulling each other down. Well, we're going to build to get there. The first unit is all about capybaras. We stay with the animal theme with climbing out, since animals have relationships with each other. It seems like a really good fit for learning about our relationships with our peers. So if anybody knows the TikTok trend, capybaras are considered to be the kindest creature on earth. And so we're going to play a riff on that. In first and second grade, we're going to teach how to be kind. And we're going to use these three different examples that capybaras give us of how they're kind by including others, helping others, and always looking out for each other. Then in third and fourth grade, we bring out the idea of what a positive friend is. So we're going to start teaching some key vocabulary as well. And we use the metaphor of a flock of geese, because they do a lot of things that are great metaphors and represent things that a positive friend will do for one another, which include calling out support and then actually stepping in and helping someone when it's needed. In fifth and sixth grade, though, kind of takes a shift. And now not only do we teach those things, but we take a step further and we talk about peer pressure and how negative peer pressure can it can get us trapped into situations that maybe we wouldn't normally, walk into. But when we see our peers in those situations, it becomes something maybe we want to, even just in the moment. And so that leads to that. Next up, we have the unit called Desire, Time, and Effort. This is all about goal setting and hard work. In our early grades, first and second, we teach just the idea of daily goals. And think about a puzzle, right? It is very hard to put a puzzle together if you don't have an idea of what it looks like beforehand. And we use that metaphor to teach the importance of learning what a goal is, what you're trying to achieve in any given moment. And we really do focus on the short term with first and second graders. It's learning about daily goals, right? And there's plenty of examples of those. In third and fourth grade, we expand that out a little bit. The finish line, again, knowing where you're trying to get to. There's that idea of goal, but it also requires something to get there, which brings up this idea of hard work. It's a process. And along the way, you've got to try to not get too disheartened. You can't get distracted. You kind of still have to have that goal in mind. And as you put in hard work, you can get there. And then our last fifth and sixth grade unit is going to be based on hiking a mountain. And you will notice that there are 4 different versions of the same 2 kids here hiking a mountain. And we're going to go into detail of the 4 stages that we go through when trying to accomplish something and it builds on hard work, right? So there's this planning stage, there's the stage of reality where it starts to sit in, this isn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. But then as you get closer, you reach the accomplishment zone. And then of course, when you succeed, you really do feel good about yourselves. The next unit we teach is called Lift the Weight. This one is all about expectations and responsibility. And in first and second grade, we're going to really focus on the idea of lines. And in this metaphor, it's about the guidelines, the guide ropes that help us navigate our day and get from one end to the other, right? And so those guide ropes represent for us, and for our students in first and second grade, rules and routines. So all of the rules and routines they have at school and they have at home, those rules and routines, they're actually there to help them, to keep them safe and to help them get from the start of their day to the end of the day. In third and fourth grade, we're going to take a little bit of different approach. Again, there are these guidelines, right? These kite lines that help that kite reach higher levels. And those lines represent, again, rules, routines. We actually expand it in third and fourth grade and start talking about things like commitments and schoolwork and work at home and things like that. But we introduce also this idea of resistance, and that if we didn't have these lines to help create the resistance that kite can go upwards, then that kite would just crash to the ground. So they're really important. And then in fifth and sixth grade, we really drive into resistance and the process that we go through. There's this guy of climbing the wall. The resistance is gravity. And as we learn to lift against that resistance, it actually builds muscle. It makes us capable of doing more. The next unit we teach is called problem solving, it's called jumping hurdles. It's all about problem solving. And in this unit, first and second grade, we actually focus more on just putting in effort and making mistakes, right? So before we go into problem solving, there's kind of a process you go through on how to learn to do anything or overcome a problem. Like with riding a bike, you have to keep trying. You're not going to do it the first time. You're going to have times where you either fall down or you're not as good, but as you do it, you get better. That is a problem you've actually solved, right? A great example that a lot of kids have gone through. So then we get to third and fourth grade and we introduce problems in the metaphor of a hurdle, where, it's, and that's a pretty common metaphor for problems, right? Is jumping hurdles. So we introduce problems and we introduce a strategy for jumping or solving those problems. And then in fifth and sixth grade, we expand it and recognize that, okay, so actually, in order to accomplish the things we want to accomplish, we're going to have to actually incorporate problem solving into our life, where it continually happens. I want to make a point to that. Sorry. I want to point out that hurdles are designed to be tripped over, right? And so making mistakes becomes a part of that dialogue as well. Getting plugged in. So this one is all about relationship building and support systems. And so we really focus on two things in all of the units. We focus on the importance of relationships, and then we focus on how to build, identify, and strengthen relationships, right? And so the metaphor for first and second graders is the idea of a collection. A collection is something you value, you want, you want more of, you don't want to get rid of. Well, we all have a collection in our life that we love and that we need and want, and that is our collection of relationships that we can plug into, that we can use to feel good and help us get through our day. So we kind of bring up relationships in this idea that you can collect relationships around you that help support you. And then in third and fourth grade, we actually use the metaphor of a phone charge, and the idea that, you start off the day with a fully charged phone, but as you go throughout the day, as you use it, that charge starts to dwindle. Well, in order to get that phone charged again, you got to plug it in, right? And that idea is that we go throughout our day, and because we have things we have to do and go to school and responsibilities and this and the interactions, our battery starts to get drained as well. And a very important skill is learning how to plug into the people in your life that can help recharge you. A lot of you brought up in the chat window the importance of support. This is what we're talking about here. It is so important for our students to learn how to identify, build, and strengthen the relationships in their life, and recognize it's important for me to go throughout my day. Now, we're done with actually the development of these programs. Our illustrator is still finishing off our last few things here for us to put it together and put it up live. But this one will be very similar to third and fourth grade. It's actually a video game character with an energy meter. And then, of course, as it interacts in that video game setting, that energy meter starts to diminish, and you have to do certain things to recharge that energy meter, which in this case is going to be plugging into your relationships. And then the last unit in the secondary is referred to as the wall. The elementary lines up with that. Again, I don't have the images here for you right now. Illustrator's finishing those up, but it's based on superheroes. And we use this unit to actually go back and review everything that we've learned together, and then recognize all of these awesome skills that we've learned to do difficult things in our lives. And so it's all about self-efficacy, right? And probably one of the most essential things our students need, which is, believing in their own ability and the capability of affecting their world around them. So that is, I know that was a lot. I was trying to get you excited because it's just so fun to use these metaphors with students, and then to do activities and videos and use picture books and music and everything that we use as a part of the approach. To use these metaphors, it's just a great experience with your kiddos. I know my time, I want to kick this back over to Jason because he has some really cool things. He wants to show you a couple things from this. But one last thought I want to share with you is there's 10 units, but that doesn't mean there's just 10 lessons. In fact, we have scoped out a 20-week scope and sequence for every single grade level. The first and second grade, third and fourth grade, fifth and sixth grade, that if any of our users just want to grab it and go, and they don't necessarily need to or want to customize anything, these are pre-built lessons with a 20-week scope and sequence, ideal for doing this once a week for approximately 20 to 40 minutes, depending on the grade level. Exciting stuff. Jason, I think now's a great time just to even maybe go do a more in-depth dive into one of the lessons.
Thank you, Corey. That was awesome. Really great in-depth overview. So what I want to do now is actually show a model for you what one of these lessons looks like. These lessons are designed to be delivered in about a 20-minute window or so. I am going to attempt to do it in about a 10-minute window. So it's going to be a little bit abbreviated, but I want to show some of the ingredients. Now, for those that are familiar with the WhyTry approach, you'll probably see pretty quickly that there are some very familiar elements, specifically visual metaphors, activities, video clips, and a lot of processing to invite you to see how this applies to your life. But hopefully you're viewing it now through the lens that Corey just set up, and you can see how we've taken these and made them kind of developmentally appropriately scaled to the levels that you would be teaching them. Jennifer brought up, by the way, Jennifer was a previous guest. She's an absolute all-star when it comes to being both just a phenomenal educator and a great WhyTry user. But she mentioned how she's used that image of the knight with high school students. And I mentioned to her that we developed all of these elementary lessons with secondary in mind. And so the goal is with all of these that you can deliver these and they will create a foundation while still leaving a lot of those key pieces for you to be able to talk about at an appropriate secondary level. So this is designed to work fully in conjunction with the traditional WhyTry resources that you're used to. The other thing I'm going to mention right now, just as a teaser, this lesson that I walk you through, whether you have access to the WhyTry toolkit or not, we are going to give all of you that showed up for this a full download of this lesson and the resources that I'm about to walk you through. And I'm excited to share it with you. This is the first time I've ever done this over Zoom. So I'm excited to do this. Now I'm going to just give you a quick kind of overview of where this comes from. So this is a live look at our toolkit. All of those resources that Corey mentioned exist within our toolkit, and they're available here under elementary lessons. And if you look at the elementary section, you can see we've got all of our elementary resources organized by learning unit. The one I'm going to walk you through comes through from the lift the weight section. And lift the weight is where we're teaching kiddos the key concepts of expectations, responsibility, and self-discipline. And the one I'm going to be walking you through comes from the 3rd and 4th grade section. It's really fun. So if I click on the vertical alignment, you'll see that same document. This will be included in the resources that we're going to share with you. You can see the overview. I will be teaching from the 3rd and 4th grade alignment. So you can see kind of what we're looking to teach, and it has a brief abbreviation of the visual metaphor that we will use to teach, as well as our objectives. So I've downloaded the resources already, and I'm now going to jump over. I've downloaded the slide deck that we're going to share with you, and I'm going to jump over to that and walk you through it. Now, before we do that, I actually have a video that I want to share with you. And this is to start our discussion off. We're going to be having a discussion about kites, because I think we can learn some really important life lessons from examining how kites operate. So we're going to watch a kite for just a minute. And I just want you to, this is a kite festival in Iowa. And this one happened last year. You're going to see lots of examples of kites. I just want you to pick out what your favorite kite is. And then when we finish the video, you can just type into the chat what your favorite kite was that you saw in the video. So we'll skip past. There we go. All right. So we've got some peaceful music. We're going to see examples of some really cool professional looking kites. Normally I would keep this up a little longer, but in the interest of time, I'm going to move forward. But I am curious, type into the chat, what was your favorite kite out of the ones that you saw in that video? I know which one my favorite one was, but I'm curious. Yeah, mine was the alien too. It's super cool. Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about kites, because kites can teach us some kind of important life lessons. So I've got here, I have downloaded the slide deck. These are the actual resources we're going to share with you. Oh, the manta ray was super cool too. All right. So I have here an image of another kite. This is called, a lot of people will call this a beach kite. A beach kite is a little bit fancier version of some of the kites we might have had when we were kids. What does it take to fly a kite? If you were going to fly a kite, what would the ingredients be for you to get that kite up in the air? So you got to have some wind, patience. What else? Oh, there we go. That string. That's kind of important. And then you also need a kite and some coordination, some controls, right? Awesome. So the key pieces are typically going to be a kite, that string, maybe a tail on the kite, and perhaps some wind, and us as kind of that anchor holding the string, right? So what makes a kite unique? Go ahead and respond in the chat. What is it? What's unique? What are some unique things about a kite? The shape. Yeah, it flies without a motor. The colors, person holding it, the way, they're very unique for sure. Now, in this case, when we look at this kite, the strings play a really important role, and I want to talk about those for a minute. How do the strings help a kite to fly upwards? How do those strings help a kite? They help you guide it. Yeah, we can kind of steer it, gives it balance. The way it flies with the wind, direction. Christine points out the anchoredness and the steering of it, the support. What would happen if the person in this picture let go of the strings? Would the kite continue to fly? It would for a minute, but then it would eventually crash or veer out of control, right? So the strings are interesting because they create this sense of resistance that pulls the kite against the wind, and the strings actually allow it to stay in the air and fly up in the air and stay really high in the air. Those strings create an interesting, necessary type of resistance so that it can be steered and fly. Now, in our lives, we have things that kind of function like those strings, like those lines. Sometimes it can feel like they're pulling against us, but some of these things in our lives kind of keep us anchored and help keep us up in the air. And if you look at some kites, like some of these professional kites, they have multiple lines, multiple strings. What are some examples of kite lines in our life that maybe are things that feel like they control us, but are actually helping us out? Can you think of any examples? For sure, parents, jobs, family. I love it. Teachers. These are great answers. Structures of work. And in all of these things that you've mentioned, they all have that come with them kind of a set of rules and expectations, right? When we're at school, we have certain rules and expectations with our teachers. When we're with our friends, we have certain rules and expectations. When we're with our parents, we have certain rules and expectations. And those rules and expectations operate similar to the strings of a kite. They can feel like they hold us back a little bit, but in reality, when we learn how to follow and embrace those, they help keep us in the air and help keep steering us in a good, healthy direction. Normally, we would spend a little more time digging into that, but in the interest of time, I want to model for you an activity that I think is kind of a cool way to process how lines can have an impact on us. So we're going to do an activity. I'm going to give you 45 seconds. I'm going to put up a page with a whole bunch of numbers on it. And I'm going to give you 45 seconds. And I want your job is to try to count through the numbers in order and see how high you can get. So you need to start by finding the number 1 on the page. Some of you might have to put your reading glasses on. You're going to need to start by finding the number 1, and then you need to find the numbers in order. You can't move on to the next one until you've found it sequentially in order. And I want you to see how high you can get, what number you can get to in order in 45 seconds. Okay? So we're going to start the clock right now. Ready? Begin. Oh, false start. We're going to start it now. Ready, begin. And my apologies if the numbers are a little bit small. If you do this in person, you'll print this out for your kiddos. For those that just joined us, we're asking you to find the numbers in order. See how high you can get in 45 seconds. All right, go ahead and stop. Now, I'm not going to ask you to report, but just keep in mind what number you got to. Now we're going to do a little update to the exercise. I'm going to give you 45 more seconds, but this time I'm going to put some guidelines up that divide the page into 12 different boxes. And if you look closely, you can find one of the numbers in each box and then move left to right and then top to bottom through these boxes and look for the next number in the next box and see if these guidelines help out a little bit in finding these numbers. If you're doing this in person, the way you'll do it is you'll give your kiddos a printout, and then after the first round, you'll have them fold the paper so that it creates these boxes. So here, I'm going to stop my share momentarily, and I'm going to show you So you're going to see a version of the paper that has these grid lines on it. And I want you to find each number sequentially in the box. And you'll notice an interesting pattern and see if these guidelines don't help you get a little bit further than you did in the first round. So we're going to go load up 45 seconds again. Go ahead and get ready. Begin. And now use those boxes and see if you can go and order the boxes left to right, top to bottom, each box sequentially advancing the number that you find. Okay, go ahead and stop. Now we're going to process the activity. By the way, just a heads up, we're probably going to go about 5 minutes after the hour. We've got a lot of information that we've fit in. Who raise your virtual hand if you did better the second round with the guidelines than you did in the first round? Awesome. It's kind of cool. The first time I did that activity, I think I got almost twice as many with the guidelines. So whenever we do an activity, part of the WhyTry approach is we want to process. So what made finding the numbers difficult in that first attempt? Why was that hard the first round? There were no directions. They were all over the place. No guidelines, right? So what changed in the second round that made it easier? Structure, guidance, boundaries. That's incredible. How did the lines help you? They provided guidance, right? So we've been talking about kite lines and how the lines of a kite keep the kite in the air. The lines on the page and the kite lines kind of have something in common. They both can help us, right? Now, I'll stop the processing here, but if you were processing this with your students, with your kiddos, at this point, you would jump into a discussion like you see here. What are some examples of rules and routines that help us be more safe, successful, and healthy every day? And then you're now using that to create the connection between the activity you just did and the concept that you're teaching through the visual metaphor. So the last question I have here, I want you to look at this image and you can see there's a kite. I don't know if you caught it the first time around, but there's a kite that crashed and is on the ground. What do you think the story is behind that kite? What might have caused that kite to crash and fall to the ground? Any thoughts? It probably didn't have support. Maybe it took on some damage. Maybe the strings got broken or the person let it go. Awesome. I love the answers. And if you look close, there's no strings attached to that kite on the ground. So without the strings, it flew for a minute, but it ended up crashing. And that same thing can happen to us. So in conclusion, sometimes these rules and expectations we have around us can feel frustrating or feel bothersome. But in reality, they're designed to really help keep us up in the air. And when we learn how to follow those, we develop this skill called self-discipline that really can help us out in life. Now, there's a worksheet that accompanies this that we will send to you. We'll put up a QR code and we'll send it to you. But the worksheet invites kiddos to highlight and identify lines in their life which could represent rules, routines, or responsibilities that can help them be the person they want to be, and then they can color it and decorate it. So this is the actual worksheet, and we're going to give you a copy of this as well. So there's a quick walkthrough of what one of our actual lessons. I downloaded it directly from the website. We're going to give you all a copy of it, and we're running short on time, but I want to hear your thoughts, Corey. Anything that you want to add to the lesson walkthrough I just did, or maybe even mention about the tools or resources that they have?
That was awesome, Jason. Great review of it. Going through it a little faster than obviously you normally would, but it was fun to see that in action. And it doesn't take long for you to realize and even envision your own self administering this type of lesson to your students, facilitating it and recognizing, wow, this is going to definitely have a different type of engagement than me just sitting down and having this conversation with my kids that say, look, rules are designed to help us. You have to follow the rules, because if you don't, right, which is what typically we end up doing a lot of times, is just kind of preaching to students about how this something is really, really important without engaging them in some type of learning process. So great example. The only thing I wanted to share just in my closing thoughts are, number one, thank you for all the feedback and participation in the chat window. I wanted to show this. If you're looking at the screen there, you see what Jason kind of showed you already. This is a glimpse at the WhyTry Program Toolkit and lesson materials. I just want to point out that one of the awesome things about an online program that WhyTry provides is that, with the hard copy stuff that I have purchased and researched out as an administrator, you buy it, you spend a lot of money on it, and a year later, they've come out with a newer edition. And if you want the newer edition, you have to fund it and you have to come up with that again. The great thing about WhyTry is that we are constantly trying to update things, add things, pull things out, make things more relevant. And when you're using the program, you just get access to it. It's not like we send out you're going to have to pay your initial fee again in order to access this content. You just get it. And so we've been developing this elementary lesson. It's been a sandbox for the last year. And so for those who have been trying it out and using it a little bit, thank you for doing so. But you will see quickly as this comes full circle that this elementary pre-built section will have this big 20-week scope and sequence where you will be able to dive in, and in every unit you'll be able to pull up vertical alignment and make plans if you're working with multiple grade levels, depending on what your role is. This is such a great resource, these pre-built lessons for classroom teachers that really usually have their time pulled in a gazillion different directions. And so I know this is a really valuable resource, and I hope that everyone here, if you don't currently have access, that you work to get that access, because this can be a great tool for you. I think that's all I have.
Great comments. So just to reiterate that, and I'm going to put up a QR code right now because we want to get you access to these resources. So a couple of notes. If you hit this QR code that I've put up right now, that will take you to a page. You can put in your email address, and then we will email you a web page that has those resources, and you can download all those resources I just shared with you, including the slide deck, the overview, the activity, the visual metaphor, and the worksheet. And it includes a walkthrough with your objectives. For those that currently have access to the WhyTry Toolkit, this is in there. You have access to these resources. We're going to be sending out a link to a landing page with information on kind of overview information if you want to share with your administrators or any of your colleagues that may not realize that they do have access to these resources. For those that may not currently have access to the WhyTry online toolkit, hit this QR code and we will send you a link where you can download the lesson that I walked you through today. It's a really great, really universally applicable lesson that I think you can teach to any group of kiddos. I've walked my own children through this and have taught this to other students. It's a really fun visual metaphor approach to it. But otherwise, we're just so excited to announce this. We're going to make a mention of it on our website. We're also going to send out a follow-up email. And then this webinar session has been recorded, and we'll have it available on our YouTube channel and on our website as well. So we want you guys to help us spread the word if you're willing. Tell your friends, tell your colleagues, even people that may think they know WhyTry. There's some really cool updates where the visuals have been updated, and there's a really nice path now for elementary that really sets our kiddos up for secondary. So thank you so much for participating, for showing up. Huge thank you to the whole WhyTry team for all the effort they've put into developing this. Thank you to our beta testers. We had many educators that helped beta test this for us and gave us great feedback early on these lessons. And then just thank you to all you as attendees. You're awesome. You continue to inspire us. And we're so excited to be able to offer these resources for you. One last note, we're going to be sending out a link, but we are interested in finding new additional people that might be panelists on future webinars. So look for that link as well. Let's see, Lori, doesn't come next step. Okay, Lori, shoot, if any of you are having trouble with the QR code, Mark just put the link directly to the form in the chat. So Lori, I know you just sent Corey and I a message, but hit that link that Mark just shared, and that will take you to the same spot that the QR code was supposed to go to. So apologies for any of you that are struggling with the QR code. Mark, if you can stay on and kind of keep that link fresh in the chat. If any of you are struggling, that QR code isn't working for you, hit that link in the chat instead, and that'll take you right to the same page. Awesome, Jeff. That's great to hear from you. So we're excited, and we're really looking forward to your feedback on this as well. These have been really fun to develop. So any other questions? Corey and I will be happy to stick around and entertain questions. If not, hit that link, tell your friends, tell your colleagues, and let them know that there's some great elementary resources out there